Straight from a clubhouse chat that we are doing technically together today. I mean, I don't even know what we're talking about. Life is a surprise. Let's go. Hi.
Okay.
Oh, we're doing sound effects now.
Well, I had tea for the clubhouse room, which was a trip. Like that was quite the time that we just had. Um, and yeah, I meant to go make more tea, but I also realized it's pretty late for me, so maybe it's not the best thing for me to have caffeine.
It's
So
probably not.
a bit of a hard seltzer for me this time instead.
What is that?
This is a fruit cart watermelon. So
Is that a new
it's
thing? It's like
well,
what's
there's this
that?
funny
Is
thing
it like
in
White Claw?
it's it's basically like a White Claw, but
Oh
it's by
man.
it's by a brewery here in LA called Golden Road. So you know me, I'm very about the local, and there's a little bit of sugar in it because they really wanted it to taste like something. I like the watermelon because it actually tastes like watermelon.
I miss White Claw. I really like White Claw. Like
Well,
I
it's funny that that's becoming a thing so much now because like people like White Claw, they like Truly. Bud Light is making their own seltzer now, and this is obviously a beer company that's making theirs. I just
mhm.
I'm not a big fan of Bud Light, but
I mean,
um, you and
you
I,
know,
we got introduced to this whole thing via highballs in Japan. That's
no,
what that is.
I was gonna say, like, so I, for context, there's this brand. I don't even know what it's called. It's like it's flavored. It's a version of flavored soju that I love in Japan. It's not even cold zero. It's the horoyoi drinks. You know this, the
Yeah.
fruity, nice ones that I get. So Strong Zero has a version, but there are also like fruity ones, and the name is like the brand is Horoyoi, and I recently just gotten them here. Like I accidentally bought a whole box of like 24, and I was just like, you know what? No, I'll buy it, and I drank it all. Um, but that's basically what it reminds me of,
Yeah, that's
and
what
I
these are.
love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I mean, I used to be that drinker who just wanted to go hard. And I'd be like, why do I want the fruity drink? I just want to get drunk. I used to be that person. Not anymore. I like to enjoy my drinks. I like the fruity, umbrellas, pinks, and everything. As long as it's not like, as long as it still tastes good. It can't be just sweet. I don't like just sweet. I don't like abrasively sweet. I need it to taste good. Like I don't know. It's evolution, man. It's all about experience and not the getting drunk anymore. There has to be some type of maturity in that statement.
Well, you don't want anything that's too sweet, but you got me. That's a diabetes joke. So I am literally too sweet.
I was just like you laughed at your own joke. I was just like, what?
You've heard me make that joke before.
I
Um,
know, but we don't make it. We don't do that joke you do, but you can because you're diabetic.
fair,
We
fair.
don't. So like when you make that joke, we're all like,
Fair enough. I got to be able to joke about it. But anyway, one thing, just like one procedural thing, real quick. If you notice, my eye line is a little bit more natural for how we do this show because normally I'm looking down here. The laptop is usually down here. I went ahead and put my laptop on a riser. You can see the line of the screen coming up. So I have to put the laptop screen all the way up to the lens so that it kind of disappears out of view. So there you go. So now I'm actually looking. It's super easy for me to look up if I really wanted to, but at the very least, it's not like you're seeing just my eyelids the entire time.
I
Anyway, yeah,
mean,
just a quick thing.
again, I've started wearing makeup because I was just like, I mean, it's been a year. Yeah, we've been in this lockdown for a year. I am just gonna be still cute. Screw this. I'm so like even if I am looking down and you can see my lids, I'm fine with that because I worked on them.
And there you go. And they're looking good as per usual.
Thank you. Um,
I might be a little bit revved up because because we just did this clubhouse room, so I
so
might be
so
filling the dead space as much as possible because that's my mode as a host. Yeah. So
I think I think that worked well. You know, we were like, let's go do Clubhouse because I feel like it's a great way to find like to speak with people and like get that energy going. And we did. We just came off a chat, which snowballed into like a really nice time with old friends and new friends. And so that is where we're coming from. It's not the usual Joshua ending his day and me just waking up and just like revving up, right? We're already at that point where we're like all revved and ready
talkative.
to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just, we, see, okay,
Are you
what?
sure you're revved up?
Um, no, it's like I've so many things going through my mind right now. It's like I don't even know what the topic is for this week, but it's like we've spoken about so many things already that
I thought it was going to be
it's like,
this.
oh, are we doing the Find X3 Pro?
I mean, I
Yes.
figured it's the biggest tech thing of
Oh,
the week,
oh,
is it not?
let's do like a thumbnail.
A thumbnail?
A thumbnail. Wait, I can see. I love that. Okay, I don't know. That's so.
That's fine.
I'm just gonna
Yeah, we
screenshot that. We
yeah.
we just did that. So we're talking about the Find X3 Pro, I guess.
Yeah, that could
I
be a thing, but
guess.
like
What
what
is
else is
that,
on your
Isa?
mind?
I should know. Uh, I don't know. At this point, I'm just like, let's do that.
Well, how did you
It's
feel
been a
about
long week. I'm
the
sorry.
yeah. Well, how did you feel about the more thoughts on the clubhouse room? Because that was our first time ever hosting a room.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, we were able to talk to some of our old friends. Shouts out to Clinton Jeff, like we haven't seen him in forever. Eventually, we got Viper
I
in,
haven't
and
seen
it's
him in
like
ever.
ever, yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was funny because I probably should have expected it, but when we got into the room, you were like, at some point, you said, "I have a feeling Josh is just going to take care of all of the moderation." I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh my
yeah.
god, like
I
this is a
mean,
lot
you
of
were
work."
doing it. You were doing it, and I just wanted to
Well, because
like
I can't
show
turn off my
appreciation. Yeah, but I
I
just
can't
wanted to
turn off
point it
my
out, and
hosting like my
I can
hosting
see it
mentality.
happening right now because like I'm getting that mind blank, and you're just like, yeah. So let's talk about Clubhouse first.
Yeah. Well,
Get you a
this is how
man
I
that
always
takes
am.
charge, people. No.
Well, I
No,
mean, sure.
it's Clubhouse is coming from my end of the world. You know, it's been such an interesting trip because I again, and people always say this, there it's a space where you're able to talk with people who in a very casual, non-committal way that you otherwise wouldn't be able to talk to. It's like saying that let's go asking someone to go on a call with you just like has certain strings attached in this day and age. Like it
Hmm.
feels like it's such a big chunk of your time. It feels like such a very committed thing to do. But then something like Clubhouse, which creates a new casual culture on conversations,
Hmm.
allow for what's the word? Allow for a little bit of that personal touch while at the
Candor.
same time, yeah, while at the same time doesn't put you in a tight spot where you feel like you have to be there, you have to answer. So I feel like that is the value of that app. Of course, I'm not going to get into the whole conversation of whether or not it's a good app. That's for you to decide. As with all social media platforms, there are issues, specifically issues on moderation and stuff like that. But I mean, that's a
And you
whole
know what?
different
That's
conversation altogether, right?
exactly, and it's a layer that you don't realize is there until you try moderating a room, and it's like I basically learned on the fly. There were so many little things about like the culture of
But
Clubhouse that I didn't even know about, and you
yeah,
taught me in real time.
but it's not even just that moderation, though. I'm talking about like in general moderation, like the app's moderation of its users
Hmm.
in a way that it like does it disallows really bad stuff like lynching or online bullying or stuff like that. I mean, these are all conversations that we should have, rightfully so, for each platform that comes out, right?
Hmm.
It's part of the social responsibility of each app that pops up. Like I say that only because like The first time I've ever heard of Clubhouse was under that context. Someone was getting cyberbullied, and it raises the question of how our present tools are able to catch up to new and evolving platforms, which it's looking like right now would be voice. Voice is looking like the hot new thing in the social media world, but like, how does one moderate it? We have issues on moderation with written posts as
Hmm.
it stands, right? So something more ethereal, something more fleeting, can prove to be a very big challenge. Again, another conversation altogether, but yeah.
Yeah. Overall, though, we had a really good time in our first room, and I love that we thought it was going to be like a half-hour thing, and it just blossomed
We
into
should
the
have
whole different
known,
thing.
though. We should have known.
I think so too. But I think also that coming into it, I was not expecting for there to be like a dozen plus people at any given time, because we didn't market that we were doing it. We just opened it up. But then since other creators that we know are on there, and when they go into a room, it blasts out to their followers. Hey, for example, Viper. Viper joined a room called "All of Us Are Technically Together. Do you want to join?" And all of a sudden, we start getting some of those people coming in, and we had other people coming in. Like, it's there's an interesting sort of like digital word of mouth thing that Clubhouse
That
does.
I feel like that's why it's so nice, and that's also why it's important to like follow the people you want to follow on that app,
Yeah,
because
I followed
it's
like
like,
half a dozen people just through our room that I didn't realize I wasn't following already.
yeah, but so like, that's why you have to be discerning of the people you follow, because if you follow a person who goes into like questionable rooms
Hmm.
and you end up going to that room, one, that person you follow going to that room blasts it out to you, and two, you accidentally pressing that room also blasts it to the people who follow you. So it's like,
Fair. Yeah, that's true.
it's sort of like a chain, and it's sort of like, why, I mean, it's an app equivalent to the whole be careful who you associate with, right?
That's
It's
fair.
really that. It's really that.
I agree with that, and that is a layer to it that I hadn't really fully thought of. Because imagine if someone saw like, oh, Joshua Vergara joined a room called "Pineapple Belongs on Pizza," and it's like, I really don't feel that way. I don't want anyone to think that I like pineapple on pizza, and I'm making light of it. But this is an example of like what that could mean. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's a pretty
I really
it's
don't
it's
like pineapple on pizza. Let me just make
I
that
mean,
clear.
I don't either, but I mean, it's come to the point where if you don't feel like pineapple goes on pizza, you don't have to hate people who think that pineapple should go on pizza.
Oh, truly,
Like,
yes.
yeah, it's gotten to that point. I mean, this is not the same context. I'm pulling out from another instance that has happened. I have a
Hmm.
very good creator friend who does funny sketches. Her name's Hershey. She's just a very genuine person who just
Yep.
wants to put positive things out there in the world. I can say this because I know her personally and I follow her content. So those two things concur. I've known her before she made her content. I've known her during, and I've seen the content she what puts out. So I say this from that perspective. Now, there are some people who don't appreciate her content, and I'm not saying you should. I'm saying, why do you need to tweet out that you don't get her content in a
Yeah.
condescending manner? My point here is that like half of the world is in ruins right now, and you're preaching social civic responsibility here, and then you decide to come in and hate on other people who are just doing their own shit, man. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see why. I don't see how that people often forget, like, because of this bandwagon of hate towards visible people online or quote unquote influencers. I've told you this before from my side of the world. There's a very strong bad connotation with that word.
Hmm.
And I've seen people who are online who try to disassociate themselves with that word. But like, my point is, like, just because someone's visible online don't assume the worst of them. There are people who are trying to do good, and maybe you've been so used to the whole culture of like people getting followers who you don't feel should get followers. But guess what? You don't get to decide who gets clout.
Yeah.
And maybe the best way to go around it about it is to encourage and not to shame.
Or, like I said a couple of episodes ago, was it 1 or 2 episodes ago? Maybe the golden rule should become, let's just leave each other alone.
Yeah, basically. I mean, again, as long as they're not spreading fake news or being insensitive or being a racist prick or perpetuating certain stereotypes or stuff like that, like why, if it's not your humor, then why hate, why pile on it?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't get it. I mean, fine, to be perfectly my speech crutch, right? To be perfectly honest, I I mean, I've been the angry person online. I try not to, but I can certainly see some instances where I've called out and stuff like that. When I
Mm-hmm.
do call out, I try to not name names. I just try to put the sentiment out there. But it's becoming more and more apparent that this is toxic, and we should not be policing other people when it comes to things that are not as heavy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like if this is not like illegal activity, or if this is not spreading fake propaganda, like why the need to police pineapple on pizza, you know? It's like maybe put your effort elsewhere. And I get that we're all mad, and I feel like that's the thing. I feel like it's everyone's just so mad with certain situations that we are misplacing all this anger into other people who could have been on the same side as you, but because there's just so much anger spewing out, like it just, you're just antagonizing everyone.
Well, that's the part that I'm talking about, which is you can be like, if you are angry about something or if you have an opinion about something, that's fine. But to go out of your way to either make it known or to attack people who are on the other side of the thing that you think or believe or whatnot, facts not even being withstanding in this case, yeah, that just makes you like, what in what world does your entitlement make you feel
Yeah.
so empowered? Like, it just
Yeah.
ultimately, like, whether or not we add in identity or anything like that, can we all just agree that that's asshole-ish
Yeah.
behavior?
I mean,
That's ultimately what it is, because there have been a lot of conversations recently that I've been noticing, and they're like debating about whether or not, like, we're not going to talk about it, but I'm just going to say, like, they're debating whether or not the royal family is racist, and I'm like, can we all just agree that they suck? Like, that that was a horrible thing to say to someone who married into the family. That was just fucked up. Like, can we just agree on that at least? Why does this debate have to be around like a specific thing? It can be, but we all have to at least agree, regardless of that layer, that that was fucked up. That's what I kept
yeah.
saying at the TV,
Yeah.
because my mom is like
But
glued to it. She wants to watch
yeah,
this whole saga unfold.
it's, I mean, I don't know. But I'm not even talking about like big issues like racism. I'm literally talking about this girl who told the story the way she'd tell a story in real life. She's a very animated person. And
Mhm.
someone hating on her because other people thought she was funny. Like, again, there are bigger issues in the world.
Yeah,
Again,
that, yeah, like,
racism is an issue, and you're out here screaming at someone because you're like, why are you funny, why are other people thinking you're funny? You're not. What, where is that energy coming
yeah, it
from?
goes back on the simplistic level. It comes back to just leave them alone. Then, like, you literally don't
Yeah.
even have to engage in
Yeah,
this
she is
conversation.
again, she is literally not the royal family. Like, if you're not into her stuff, your tax money, you as a taxpayer, no money is going into her creating that content.
Hmm.
You don't
Yeah,
have to click it. You don't have to share. You don't have to watch it. But
and
for
that's
you to
and that
sit
goes back.
here,
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm just for you to sit here and judge what she's doing online, for to judge how she's telling her story, to judge that other people are feeling like she has funny content. Like, how does that make it better?
Yeah,
How does
I was just yeah, I was basically just going to support that claim. First of all, shouts out to Hershey. Obviously, you have fans in Technically Together, but yeah, the yeah, it's just somebody. It comes down to the central issue that we have with people these days, which is their sense of entitlement, and it's like we all grew up in one way or another with our parents, if they were at least good parents, trying to teach us, like, just try to be a good thing in the world. Just try to be a good thing in the world. But then a sense of entitlement somehow comes in, whether it was born out of this whole like instant gratification of the internet or social media or anything like that, in which people who have opinions now have a way of getting it out there, and they think for some reason that their opinion is the most important one in their own little bubble. So it's like,
yeah, I'm
and like I said before, it doesn't even have most of the time it doesn't even have anything to do with anything specific as far as issues are concerned. It's just a person being an
yeah.
asshole.
I mean, I get like, don't get me wrong, I get being mad. I I have tendencies to broadcast that anger. And I do sometimes because I feel like it serves my purpose, which is one, to educate people that this is a situation, this is my reality as a woman on the internet. That's so when I do put this out there, it's because I still want people who tell me that, it happens to men too, that it doesn't. Not to this extent, at least. So that's my whole situation there, because people might be saying, but Isa, you also put out this stuff online. And it's just like, that's a whole, I mean, it may be a similar scenario, but to me it serves a different purpose, which is why I do it. But to
Mhm.
that end, I also understand the what is this, the knee jerk reaction
Mm.
of wanting to call out because I am mad. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about, I've been thinking about this. I'm like, maybe personally, my personal change would be, maybe there is a way to call out certain things online, but word it positively, semantics.
Fair.
It's
Yeah.
instead of, yeah, I'm not saying don't call out, just praise. No, not exactly that. I'm saying call out phrased in a
Constructively.
way, yeah, that's a little bit more constructive. That's a little
Hmm.
bit more introspective and applicative. Is applicative a word? I don't know
I
if
guess
that's a
I don't
word,
know.
but you
It
know what I
actually
mean.
comes
It's
back. It actually comes back to and it's interesting that you brought this up, because Nick Ray and I, when we did Pocket Now Weekly earlier today, we started talking a little bit about like communication styles and stuff like that. It obviously was born, as it usually is, from a small discussion about comments and YouTube and all that. But he was saying how he gave an example of how sometimes when you're a parent, you have to raise your voice at your children, and
mhm.
it could upset them. And if they are communicative enough to be able to tell you that they are upset because of what happened, what he found was so interesting about one interaction he had was that his daughter said, I was upset at the raising of the voice. It's not the
Yeah,
content. The content was actually taken
yeah,
of what was being disciplined and whatnot, but it was just the methodology at which it was expressed that
yeah,
caused the reaction. So that it's funny. I'm just kind of connecting those two things. So
yeah.
I agree.
Sometimes
Like
some,
it's not making a pariah of the other side. It's still providing our own perspective, just in a way that is a bit more palpable, probably to people who need it to be constructed that way.
it's a hard lesson that I learned earlier on this year, because I was very angry, and I did a funny angry video, and it went viral, and because it was funny. But when you're mad and you're funny, you're funny. When you're mad and you're not funny, everyone just gets mad at you for being mad.
You're just
I'm,
mad,
I'm
yeah.
and I'm not exaggerating. It's communication, and that's why humor and comedy is such a powerful thing. I
Hmm.
think that's what people don't realize, because hard truths would humor is better perceived than just anger. And hard
Yeah.
truths are usually come with anger, right? But coupled with humor allows you to take it and laugh about it, but still get what they're trying to say, you know?
Well, I mean, going through the root problem of it is if you're approaching a situation, and this is, I don't know how we even got to this point, but like we were talking about Clubhouse, and now we're speaking about
Mhm.
communication styles. But if you're finding yourself in a situation that only can bring out an anger in you, it's probably born from a discomfort about the situation that you need to sort of unpack. Like, why am I so uncomfortable with what I'm being confronted with? Why is it that I have this reaction? And we all respond to anger. We all respond to uncomfortable things typically with anger because we don't want it. We don't
Yes.
want it to be there.
Yes.
So that's sort of like going down to the root problem is whether you call it insecurity or just discomfort. They're usually what becomes anger later on because we want it away from us. We want it out. We want to get it out. So
I
yes,
mean, it's just that social media is fast becoming just people screaming at other people.
totally
It's really disconcerting.
good word.
Um,
I've used that.
I,
Uh,
it's I just I'm I've always said that I am all for discourse and I'm all for conversation and all these things, but I can't believe I'm saying this because I've always felt that the people who said this are old and crusty and didn't have enough. I mean, I'm being crude here, of course. No offense to the people who say this, because what I'm saying is that I always felt like I would never say it, but I'm also very tired of having the same conversation over and over, and it's of screaming the same thing over and over. And it's like, to a
okay,
certain
boomer.
extent, I mean, it's again, my point is like, we are not made of unlimited energy.
Hmm.
And this is something I'm coming to terms with real hard, that I'm not invincible. And you know my issues about this whole invincibility thing.
Yeah.
At a certain point in your life, you always feel like you could do anything and that there is unlimited amount of like effort and just inertia from the back end for you to have energy to push for what you want. But there comes a certain point in time where you're tired. And
Well,
whether
you
it be
you realize that energy is finite.
yeah, and whether it be it's that inertia of that inertia that pushes you forward, whether it be you just trying to keep sane amid all the anger and the craziness, whether it be you just sitting here and trying to deflect and bounce off all the negativity, it takes up a certain level of energy, and it's tough. And again, may I remind you all, it's been a year of freaking pandemonium.
Hmm.
So this is a very hard wake up call, I think, for me. And it's also recognizing that situations are changing and me adjusting my communication style to the situation that's currently ongoing. It's me trying to figure out how to navigate my the things that I put out, how to better adjust that so that I am that voice I want to be.
Mm.
And I feel like it's a very tough thing to do for me because I've always just said how I felt. And I mean, because of how I think, I feel like that's always been, to me, like very aligned with my ideals and my morals. But
Hmm.
sometimes being aligned with your morals, I feel like isn't enough, at least to affect the certain change in my little pocket of the internet.
Hmm.
And these are things that I reflect on and I grapple with as we go. Certainly, the amount of hate online we have enough of it. I'm not in any way saying be positive. I'm not saying good vibes lang. I hate that. Things are negative because of certain negative things that need be addressed and reacted to, as is how, let's say, and this is just one example that we all know I'm probably going to get that, as is how a certain democracy works. It's a feedback mechanism. But that being said, though, there are certain things we don't have to be negative about, especially if it's pineapple on pizza or not
Well,
liking
perhaps
someone's.
perhaps the one of the ways to put it is rage need not be the only reaction. Like, because
Yeah,
if we put nothing out there but rage, well, the world becomes a very hard place to be in, and it's
especially now.
yes. To use a clubhouse term that I have heard before, if we are going, we can after talking through some of those thoughts about social media and whatnot, the clubhouse term. If we reset the room a little, we're resetting the room. Shouts out to Viper again. I guess we can get into the tech part of our technically together
Yeah. Yeah, that
episode.
was a long tangent. See, we didn't even like plan that long tangent. It just happened.
Well, we are now
Yes.
here with a very. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna bury the lead here. We're here with a very good phone. This is a goodie. It may not have leather, but it's a goodie. You actually were on a show yesterday with our good friends TK and Juan talking through
Yes.
this phone, and I thought there were a lot of really nice points that were made about not just the phone but Oppo at large. But I guess this is our platform. We have both put out videos on the OPPO Find X3 Pro. I guess see, look at me. This is the thing, but my mind is set in moderation mode, babe. Like
I
this is what an hour in
know.
Clubhouse has done. Why don't we just start off with your thoughts on the phone? And you have the version that everyone wants. You're the only one who has it.
I mean, certainly this is a good phone. Let's start with that. We all know
Mm-hmm.
this. We all know this coming from the Find X2 Pro, right? Coming from the Find X2 Pro, we've already seen how the dogs can be very noisy. Now, coming from the Find X2 Pro, we've already seen how Oppo can create amazing flagship devices. So that was the bar. So coming from that, everyone I think was thinking, unless they screw it up so completely, it's going to be a good phone. So I think that is one point to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Um Certainly something to be said about these phone manufacturers now going after the flagship category, which at some point in time, especially in mobile tech, was not the case, right? You could not have imagined that these new player, I mean, technically they're not new players, right? But at least not the brands that we s- have in our head when you say like flagship devices, right?
Or premium,
So
or
yeah, so I mean, that's one thing. It is a feat that they have carved their way into that space and in a way where there is legitimacy.
mm-hmm.
So coming from the last Find device, there is already legitimacy in whatever flagship device they will be putting out, right? So I think that is a solid point. That being said though, I think it's I mean, personally I've not been able to fully get into like camera performance.
Mm-hmm.
I've only ever done my unboxing and camera tour and first impressions. That it was a long video, um, but it is a solid device. Initially, everything that has been put out. Oh my god, my what's happening? The dogs are agreeing with me. But yeah, it is a solid device. There I okay, I want to say this up front. I have gotten comments on how like the microscope is a gimmick, and I've said this in the other stream, and I'll say it again. So is the moon zoom.
Yeah.
So is the periscope lens. Like that's a secret sauce. You have solid base specs and then a gimmick. That's the whole point. The
Yeah.
fact that the fact that it doesn't take away from the device means that's good. I mean, the fact that you have a phone this thin with four cameras and a microscope lens, like I'd be mad at it if like it was double the thickness and they were like it's because we put in a microscope in there. Like that wouldn't make sense. But
Well,
like
it's
it
also
isn't. It's a sleek device, and like I said, it's one of the best feeling. Like what is the word? Hand feeling feels good. Like
it's very ergonomically pleasing.
it's not just ergonomically pleasing though. It's very comfortable to hold. I
That's what
can't
ergonomically pleasing means.
but ergonomics mean like it's useful. I'm
Yeah, but
saying
also pleasing.
aesthetically.
I put pleasing, right? Because it feels good, so ergonomically pleasing, right? Isn't that?
Is that ergonomically pleasing means pleasing refers to the ergonomics? So the ergonomic is pleasing you, meaning it's utilitarian in that aspect
I don't
because
know.
the ergonomics
I
is what
view
pleases you.
I view ergonomics as feel. Like that's just it feels good. Like it's a good feeling phone. Like it's tuned or rather engineered in such a way that it's not like I don't have a whole lot of hand gymnastics. It's very comfortable. It's not too thick. Like the ergonomics encompasses all of that in my eyes, at least.
See semantics. In my to my mind, when you say ergonomics, it's like yes, I can reach the buttons, like it doesn't like like all the it's not the aesthetic part of it just feels good. Because something can feel good and not be ergonomic.
Mm.
Like I can have a phone that's shaped like a beautiful egg and it will feel good in my hands, but like will I be able to press buttons on it? Never.
Okay,
That's
maybe
what I
maybe the
mean.
definition is more like work rather than like it's there's a certain scientific thing to it.
Again, it's semantics, right? It's
Well, I don't
semantics.
know.
But
I don't know.
you
Maybe
guys
my
know what I
maybe
mean.
my definition is too broad. Maybe there's
Oh, well,
a more
maybe my
specific
definition
definition.
is like maybe it's my definition is very roughly coming from translations because again, I'm translating what ergonomic means, right?
Hmm.
So
But in any
yeah,
case, like
either way.
looks good, feels good, and if I'm going to use the scientific terms of ergonomics, yes, it is an efficient phone. Like I can get around it quite easily. So regardless, just like with any one of our conversations about semantics, all agreed across the board, so it doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah, so I guess that's like my main thing. I also expected to not like how it looks. I mean, a lot of people are still mixed here, right? We're not getting an
Well,
like we're not
do you
getting
have
the
your
whole I
S?
love how this looks thing that we got from the Find X2 Pro.
Yes, but I also think
What
that those same people who are
is going
missing the
on?
Find X2 Pro, is there an internet issue? Okay, the same people who are looking back on the Find X2 Pro,
Okay,
who
yeah,
look at
sorry,
this and
that sort of broke up a little bit. Mhm.
okay, I feel like the people who are looking at the microscope or the micro lens and saying that it's a gimmick aren't realizing that the thing they loved about the Find X2 Pro was also a gimmick. I'm sorry, people. Vegan leather is a gimmick. It's a design gimmick.
I
Like so,
mean, you can't
you
have it
can't just pick
all.
and exactly. You can't just pick and choose the one or two things that make a phone different and just decide to dismiss it altogether when you don't do the same thing with other phones as well. So it's like
And
if you want to have nuance, you can't just write it off because you don't like it, because you don't
it's
think it's
also
good.
like people were picking on the Find X2 Pro for not having wireless charging, and now it has fast wireless
Hmm.
charging and reverse wireless charging. So I feel like that's a solid point. Like if they did change it into a glass phone, right? And then not add that, you'd be like, why? And then just go how you just go with a vegan leader. What? leather, leather,
The
leather then,
Velither.
right? Yeah. But they did add in some functionalities. And again, I hated how it looks in the renders. I feel like it looks amazing in real life, which is amazing. Like, I mean, I don't say that about, I mean, I get excited about how shiny phones are, but like, I appreciate the curves. They're like, I
Do you
appreciate it.
have your
It's very
S21
graceful.
nearby?
la-di-da-di. I
This is a comparison that I'm sure, and take that
pulling
case
out
off.
all
So
the.
here are the two phones, the S21 and the OPPO Find X2
Wait.
Pro, Find X3 Pro. Look at those camera humps. These are two drastically different ways of looking at camera humps on phones now.
Oh wait, other side. Sorry.
It's so in Samsung's case, they made it part of the frame, and in Oppo's case, they quite literally melted it into the backing. So these are small but significant design cues meant to make the camera hump easier on the eyes. I guess my question is, which one do you prefer?
I mean, I'd prefer the Oppo mostly because it's not as jarring. Although
Mhm.
I'd prefer the S21 color.
Fair.
I have a question though. Hot take. Do you feel like it looks like the iPhone? I mean, the way I feel, I don't get it because yeah, but remember that square notch was copied off of the Mate.
Well, I mean, you can. This is the thing. You can make parallels with anything. Like some are more egregious than others. I will admit that at some point in time, both Huawei and Xiaomi were making phones that literally looked like the iPhones of the time. But
Yeah,
but I think
but
in this case, it's like it's a little. I don't know. Where are they getting this? Like it's.
they're holes. I mean, okay. So I don't get it because I've had videos on, let's say, the Nova 5T, which is that Grasian phone with the square notch, and
Mhm.
then I got people commenting that it looked like an iPhone, and I'm like, but Huawei did the stovetop first, remember?
Yep.
And I
The
remember
bazooka.
because I was hating on the stovetop, and then Apple did the stovetop, and then I was still hating on the stovetop. Like now, right now, it's sort of normalized how it looks to me. But like, I find it funny now that you have the same square like thing with big cameras, and people are like, they copy it, looks exactly like the iPhone, which to me, I'm really not seeing.
But it
Maybe it's
literally
because if you
doesn't
see it
though.
in videos, maybe it's because if you see it on
But
videos,
they're
all you see is that square. I don't know. I don't feel like it looks like it.
but they're literally different holes. Like if you're just looking at holes, like oops, sorry. Sorry, I opened up my
I
TikTok.
don't know. I really
But these
don't
are
see it.
literally different holes though. Like that's what I keep thinking to myself is like the actual orientation of the cameras themselves are different. They're not the exact same holes. If we keep saying holes.
I don't know. Again, I don't agree. I keep on seeing people say that. I don't feel like it. It's not the same thickness. It's not the same graceful curves. Um, don't get me wrong. I like the new iPhone's design more than the older design. I like the parang like square whatever thing. But it's really not as graceful, and I really don't see how you could pinpoint this phone and say it looks like they copied it from the iPhone. I don't see it. And especially considering that, again, iPhones weren't the first ones to do the stovetop module.
Yeah. It just sounds like more people who have a broken record in their brain. And every time a Chinese manufacturer comes out with something, their first knee jerk reaction is to say that they copied somebody else. Okay, sing a different tune because we've all heard it before. Whether or not it's true, like we're all tired of hearing it. Like that's just, I'm spicy about it because it's something that I've heard after 8 years of being in the industry. Is like everyone freaking says it. Like there's okay, fine. Oh, did they? Because this is always my follow up question to certain dumb remarks like that. Oh, it looks just like the iPhone. But do you like it? Like, if you like it, if you use the phone for a week and you're like, wow, this is better than the one I have now, or oh, the cameras are pretty good, or wow, it's an Android phone that I can get behind, then your first reaction is moot. And it goes back to our whole first half of the show discussion of people have these opinions that they feel like they have to put out there, when in reality, 9 out of 10 times, no one gives a shit what you have to say.
But but it's also like it doesn't though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Like,
all that is
like I,
valid, but also it doesn't.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't see it. And it's like I always feel like I get that people copy Apple. I get that. I get that. But
But
then the
also,
times
what's
that
funny
they
about that
are the
statement?
ones who sort of copy, they are still being touted as the original when they're not.
Yeah, it's just funny how this like this sort of this weird phenomenon colloquially became a thing where it's like anything Chinese is copying Apple, and it's like, well, at what point does that become a stereotype, and at what point does that stereotype become racist? Like that's at what point do we get there? But anyway, thoughts on the actual performance of the phone. I'm very impressed with these cameras. Like I did my camera test. You did a camera tour, which is a pivot from that. But I will say we have said before that zoom is not our biggest priority, especially far zoom.
Yeah. Which is why I think we both like this phone, right?
Yes, because the two sensors that will be used the most for us in this phone are the main and the ultra wide, and they are both the same high quality sensor. Here's a thought though, and this was constructed during my Pocket Now Weekly podcast earlier. Nick, I gave Nick your whole spiel about front facing cameras and why they're the way that they are and whatnot, because he woke me up with a Telegram message with pictures where one side is the Pixel 4a and the other side is this phone's front facing camera. And if you're just looking at it from a dynamic range perspective, a quality perspective, a softness perspective, the Pixel 4a wiped the floor with this front facing camera. But then I told him, but the thing is, the markets don't dictate that this phone has to look like the Pixel 4a for those markets. Like the selfies that people who buy these phones, especially in Asia, they want remove the blemishes, make my skin soft, all of that. They don't care that the background of the photo is blown out, even if Mount Fuji is in the background, because their focus is this.
Yeah, and
he just couldn't get behind that because he was like, but I would agree with that if the camera quality was still good, but it's still not. It's still a horrible selfie taker.
To that I say, look at all the filters on Snapchat and on Instagram stories and what filters are used most. When people use these front-facing cameras, they literally filter it.
Yeah.
You know? So one. And two, it's just like, again, the argument that people in the West don't edit their selfies is moot if the Kardashians edit their selfies. Every influencer talk about face tuning. And that's literally the same thing, except it's not built into the phone, you know? And like, this is funny because the first time that we got Pixels, I didn't like my selfies on there because it was way too detailed. It's the same way as getting your pictures professionally done, and it shows your pores too much, almost too well, which is why a big trick. So I've gotten comments on my A-roll and how my skin looks good on my A-roll, and I shoot with like a quarter overexposed so that it blurs out my skin.
Wow, it's funny that you brought that, because that's kind of, I didn't really say it in such terms, but it seemed to me that was the focus of this camera, was overexposure. Because I even said in my video, this front-facing camera always comes in way too hot. And to get a framing or to get a scene that I'm satisfied with, I have to crank the exposure all the way down. And I told him that, and he was like, yeah, but still, it's like, and it led me to this conclusion, which I think is something I have to come to terms with, because I've been the person who has said front-facing camera that doesn't have stabilization or 4K is already like, oh, it's hard for me to like it, because I'm a vlogger, because that's my shooting style some of the time, right? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the ultra wide on the rear in video is pretty fantastic, and not only in video quality, but there's a mic between the two main sensors. So audio is actually really good.
Wait,
that's a mic.
Wrong phone.
That's a mic.
Like,
that little hole.
Phone.
That's a little that little hole there. That's a microphone. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I was blown away by when I made my real world camera test was the quality of the audio in my videos, whether it was front or back, but mostly when it was back. I was so impressed with that. So I was thinking, maybe we need to have the marketing shift a little bit. Like, maybe we need to start telling people, if you're going to vlog, you might as well be using the rear, because that's where what you're looking for probably is. Meanwhile, on the front-facing camera, especially for Chinese phones, it's about me not having freckles. It's about me not having lines on my forehead.
You know what's pretty interesting about that is actually Samsung tried to remedy that with their bright and normal shooting mode on the selfie. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's very indicative of why there's a bright mode. Because people, like, anytime there's a selfie person, Instagram person, they're gonna say get good lighting, because having that light shine on your face is the whole point of ring lights. Having that light, that is the aesthetic sensibility that people are looking for.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm sorry, and I know a lot of people in tech do this, but it grinds my gears when people are like, there's such a bad selfie camera. Look at how bad it looks when the beauty mode is cranked up. Like, if you crank it up, that means you don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
Like, that's why
Yeah.
there's a toggle. So when people go like, oh, selfie's so bad, and then post a selfie at number 10 beauty mode, and of course the face is blurred, I'm like, well, duh.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's why there's number one,
This is
you
probably an
know?
exploration that I need to put into my ultimate review of this phone because I find it so interesting that Oppo, it's clear to me now that these companies know how to make good camera quality, both in and out of hardware, so, hardware or software rather, because Oppo proved it with the rear.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the front, for them to just, we have to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt now, and just realize that this was done by design. We can't be like, oh, they just can't make a good front-facing camera. No, that wasn't the point. Based in,
I
based
feel
on
like,
based on that person's metrics, that wasn't the point.
of course, if you're not the target market for it, you're
Exactly.
not gonna appreciate it, right? And
Hmm.
I've been consistent in saying that I like the Oppo beauty mode. The only time I didn't like it was when they first introduced AI into the beauty mode, and then it was tweaked for beauty standards for Chinese faces, I think. So they kept on making my eyes bigger when I'm like, dude, I already have big eyes. But that was the AI though. So my point is that, like, I feel like it's there's that again. It oil what? It all stems from different use cases and traditional tech usage and tech content not being catered towards that demographic. I understand that this might not be the preference for some people, but again, you might not be the target audience that they're trying to serve. You
Yeah.
already have four cameras for your shooting stuff. Give me this front facing one.
Well, that was the point I was about to make, which is if the front facing camera is not made for you, and I think that's the new terminology that we can say, if it's not made for you, definitely wasn't made for me. No stabilization on the front. That's already a big no-no for
Mm.
me. Well, the rear cameras will provide you what you need. And I think that's messaging that we should probably start adopting more as reviewers on these high-end
Now,
phones.
I will take it a step forward even. And this is why, to me, that very first Meizu device with a tiny screen on the back was compelling.
Meizu or Mate
Be-
2?
Meizu.
Okay.
It's the Meizu phone. It was not a selfie phone. It was a Meizu phone with a QT screen on the back.
Oh, gotcha,
I
gotcha. Okay.
it because it allows for, I mean, it doesn't give you the whole image, but it allows for you to see. And also why I'm pretty excited about the prospect of a Mi 10, Mi 11 Ultra with a screen on the back,
Hmm.
because it will allow you that tiny preview if
Basically,
you
the
wanted to use it that way.
which would yeah exactly, which leads me to say there are solutions to what we're saying or what we're
Mhm.
wanting as users. It's just not the solutions we expected.
I'm just saying that we have to be realistic in that the selfie camera will most probably be a bigger and better thing where people use it more.
Hmm.
Case in point, TikTok. People shoot with their front facing cameras all the time. Now, what I would suggest for probably a lot of these smartphone manufacturers would be the option to turn off all of these things. I feel like that's the issue, the not being to turn it off, not being able to turn it off, the non-choice, right? Because like to a lot of reviewers, probably the whole point is, yeah, sure, I get that that's for other people, but then I don't want it that way. Why can't I turn that off? To which I say, welcome to a woman's life. But that's another tangent altogether. My point is that that choice would be very welcome if they are able to do that, and then that would like just remove all issues. Um, which is also why I don't like the whole Google Pixel messaging of them removing the beauty mode, and how a lot of the articles were phrased that they were combating women's or like kids insecurities and stuff like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
remember that whole thing came about and they were like, we're removing the, so a lot of the articles, whether it be Google or the publications, but I read a lot of articles which phrased it as the battle against the beauty mode and like dysmorphia when it comes to beauty standards. And I hated that. Why? That meant that as a woman, I couldn't win anymore. Why? You want me to look flawless, and there's a filter that can help me do that without much work, because that beauty standard will exist whether or not the
Beauty mode
filter is
does.
there.
Yeah.
So the beauty standard still exists, but now you're also telling me that I'm not allowed to use the beauty filter. So now I have to be flawless and I have to not use a beauty filter in being flawless.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if you want to combat those stereotypes, maybe start at the
Combat those
root.
stereotypes. Yeah.
Yeah. It this the beauty modes were a reaction to that to make it easier for women.
Well, it's so funny that they have this like argument, and I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. I just wanted to put out there real quick. It's funny that they have this whole like, if you want to talk about dysmorphia, they have this weird disconnect when it comes to the beauty standard, like you just said. So they're against the beauty mode because of that. Meanwhile, we're praising somebody for using a deep fake of Tom Cruise on a complete stranger. And it's
Which I
like,
mean, it's a completely, it's another can of worms. Like people
yeah.
like me, it's not funny, it's scary, because someone can so easily put my face on anything, and as a woman that frightens me.
Yeah. So like why pick and choose the levels of technology that you either support or don't? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's interesting to me because obviously, yes, the root of the problem is the root of the problem is the beauty standard. Meanwhile, people are happy that technology is moving forward with like deepfakes and stuff like that because it's to them it's cool, but they're forgetting the root problem of that thing too.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's much to be said about the issue of having beauty standards in the first place and what things contribute to it. That is a whole different topic altogether that would probably not, we won't have enough time to discuss even in one episode. That's a whole different thing altogether. But to me, what these people ended up saying when they started talking about the beauty mode and how the bad it does was that, oh, like as a woman, what it sounded to me was, oh no, this is another beauty standard that I actually have to conform to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not only are you telling me that, women that are prettiest without makeup, but now you're also telling me that women who are prettiest are not only those who look great without makeup, but they also shouldn't be needing to use the beauty filter to look great. And you see the different layers. And this is what happens when someone who is not that person, I feel like, is not that target, someone swoops in and thinks, oh, this is the solution, when you've not lived it actually,
Mm-hmm.
when you've not grown up knowing these pressures, when you're not, yeah, and a lot of women creators I've spoken to are the same. Where like, you see these tech YouTubers, they put on a cap, they start shooting. I have to sort of figure out a way to present myself that I don't seem like I'm too slutty. I mean, shouts out to Real Sexy Cyborg, who is one of the biggest Chinese YouTubers. She's a maker, but she's also an LGBTQ member and an ultra femme, in that she wears these really skimpy clothes. And she has like these, she looks like an anime. And that's, and it's a whole different movement. It's ultra femme. She's, I'm not gonna even describe it. But like my point is, for us, there are certain parameters of what is acceptable. She is a brilliant creator, but people are like, why do you dress like a slut? And I'm not saying that. I'm saying I've seen her talk about comments that say that.
Mm-hmm.
When she is a very well accomplished person in the industry, and that's what people see, you know? And so my point is, sometimes there are stopgap measures that actually exacerbate the already existing situation and add on to the burden of our reality. And I feel like that has to be examined a little bit more. It's so easy for someone to say, don't use the beauty mode. You're pretty enough as is. When you didn't grow up being told that this is the standard of beauty you have to conform to. When you didn't grow up feeling that you have to look a certain way to be listened to or to be legitimized in a certain industry.
Hmm.
And I think that's just the bottom line.
In a grander sense, as far as this phone is
Yeah.
concerned.
I
Um,
mean, yes. That
yes,
was a whole tangent.
I think one of many, and I think that ultimately, if we were to take both of our opinions and put them together, it is the beauty mode, or rather, the quality of the camera does have something to do with where it's being marketed, where it's coming from,
Mm.
and I think the ideal situation would be that we have those things, but also the stabilization and the 4K.
Yeah.
It would
Actually,
be great to
I
have both,
mhm.
but I think on my end, it's like they're clearly trying to tell us that use the rear cameras more if you're
Mhm.
more that kind of person,
Yeah.
and I
I
will.
I
I
don't
will
I
now.
don't I don't mind the 4K, but I would very much love the stabilization.
Hmm.
I feel like that's really something that I totally get behind.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it is a great phone. I'm looking forward to doing a social media test on it. And I'm not sure if I want to do a camera test because, you guys have put out videos on it. So that might not be something I do, but I certainly want to check it out for social media. And I feel like honestly, it's not just this phone, but for a lot of things, I just give it a chance. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
It's that. I still will say though that I am still a little hurt because I still want the original Find X. That still to me is like the ultimate.
The with the whole
That was
pop up
the phone.
module.
Yeah, yeah. That was the phone where I was just like, this man, this phone is amazing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's not. Sorry, just to add, it's not as fragile as it seems. I did bring it island hopping.
I mean,
I
I
brought
brought
it
I
to the
brought the
blast.
Zenfone 6 with the flip out cam island hopping as well.
Yeah,
So
but babe, this was literally like I was planting it on sand and taking remote
oh
selfies with it in the sand. I sort of scratched up the screen protector bad actually because I did that without a case. But that
wow.
being said, and it's also like this is the type of trip where like after a day you lick your, I don't know why you're gonna do this, but if you lick your hair it's salty. My point is like it's not just like it being put in places, but the actual air and the humidity of the
Hmm.
seawater. It's that type of trip. It was a week long. I did all that. I shot with it and it was fine.
Hmm.
So I mean, I feel like that's the ultimate test when it comes to like normal use with like all the weather and stuff,
Yeah,
elements
I don't
and stuff.
even I don't even remember if the Find X was IP certified. I want to say no because of
I
its
no, it
mechanical
was
parts.
not because yeah, it was
Okay,
not. But it was like me literally like standing it up on like the sand and like doing palm gesture
playing
selfies.
with
Like I
fire.
have. Yeah, I mean, I came up with like really nice photos. Oh, wait, not even. I used it as a remote for the camera selfies that I took with
Mm.
that white Canon camera. And so I was in the water and holding it and just like throwing it on the sand. It's
That's playing with
simple.
fire because yeah, because
Oh, but
as
my
people
photos.
as people who know these spec sheets, if I were like, then again, I brought a Red Magic gaming phone into the Tokyo rain, and
Yeah.
that thing had literal holes in it. So yeah,
But it's
the
also my selfies were so fire though. You like those photos. And like it was so funny because I went with a friend and everyone was like, wow, I didn't know he could take that photo, those like really nice photos. And like I think a lot of them were in bikinis too. So they were thinking that would be so awkward if he were the one taking your photos. And I'm like, nah, he was doing his shit. I was doing mine. And literally they were all self. Oh, I'm trying to get at it. Like, but like the photos I got on that camera, they were amazing. It makes me wish I could go out and travel again.
Well, I mean, as a couple of final notes for this episode, since we're hit the hour mark, um, my tier is up for vaccination come Monday, so I'm going to be looking
Your
really hard.
tier?
Diabetics. um,
Man,
so
that that's
as of right now, though,
awesome.
I'm thinking like, because I had a couple people ask me like, "Oh, so you're up in California on Monday? Hopefully, you'll be able to get it quickly." I'm like, "Yeah, I really hope so." But the
Uh-huh.
like, what are you looking forward to most? And I was like, I mean, I would want to go places, obviously, but I think the places I go to are going to be more local. Probably San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco, Las Vegas, go see friends there, still be socially distant because just because I'm vaccinated doesn't mean that other people aren't in danger, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? I have to say, probably the one place that I really want to go to now is the gym. I'm
Yeah.
actually looking forward to going back to my
Wait.
gym because
Lem
this whole, yeah, I remember that one.
this was shot on the Find X. That was a silhouette photo, but I mean, it
Yeah.
was.
So yeah, this whole working out at home thing is just not, it's not doing it for me. I
Hmm.
can't get into it like because I'm already here in the office and then I go home and you've articulated this in the past. I'm the kind of
Hmm.
person that works until I knock out. There's no in
Yeah,
between. And it's
not the
impossible
best.
for me. It's impossible for me to have an in between when I'm at home because
Hmm.
the in between is usually like watching or playing something because all I did was work all day.
Oh, what's happening? Okay, sorry.
So I'm actually looking forward to having a third space, as in the gym, to
Hmm.
go where the function of that space is for that, rather than trying to inject it into another space.
I mean, we literally built a gym, so I'm just
You put it in a good
we
spot though, so it feels like a different
yeah.
space.
Yeah, and then we're building a pantry. We got my mom a washing machine, and I might get another one. We're trying to work on the basement because that's actually a library that we haven't. I mean, it's not my house, but it's also like it's about time we fix it up because we've just been here for a whole year already, right? Um,
Definitely.
yeah,
Any
more space to test out cameras, honestly.
yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I mean, if you're not going to end it, I will. You're just
you
sitting
wanna
there.
you wanna do you wanna do the extra?
I suppose I could.
Okay, queuing extra. Bye, guys.
And that would be our episode for this week. Thank you so much for listening to Technically Together. If you're watching the YouTube side, there are our links to our various channels, both myself and Isa's. On this episode, just as a quick recap, we talked about some social media stuff, the OPPO Find X3 Pro, the perils of having selfies and beauty modes, and finally just I'm up for vaccination. Hopefully it's going to be real quick and I can finally go back to the gym. In any case, we're going to call it on this episode of Technically Together. Thank you so much for kicking it with us here and in the clubhouse in the pre-show. So, see you in the next one.